a very well-known Greek tragedy, and artist slash writer Casey Parsons has done a beautiful job of taking this Greek tragedy and condensing it into a comic story, which he has actually written in poetic, very lyrical form. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, Orpheus was the son of the god Apollo, and he was gifted with the ability to play a beautiful music that will bring even the gods to their knees. And Eurydice is a beautiful young wood nymph who falls madly in love with Orpheus when hearing him play his music. They have a torrid love affair, followed by a rather ill-fated marriage. Their wedded bliss is very short-lived as tragedy befalls, and Orpheus must go on a quest that takes him to the underground, where he must confront first Cerberus and then Cerberus' master Hades, in an effort to appeal the god of the underworld to release his wife's spirit. But as all Greek tragedies go, the plan doesn't go off exactly as expected. There is yet another tragic twist before the two lovers find each other again in the most unexpected way. I just love how Mr. Parsons has written this story in a lyrical fashion, and the art is incredible. Again, it's breaking the traditional comic art format of your 3x3 panel, or just having panels in general. Each page is a full, I won't call it a full splash page of art. It's very much like the style used by J.H. Williams III on Batwoman. Rossi Gifford used this art style on Spirit Leaves, where you don't have panels, but almost feels like there's panels, because one scene bleeds into the next. And what I really love is that the text, which appears along the side of the page, lines up perfectly with what you're seeing in the art. So you're reading top to bottom, and you're looking at the art from top to bottom. One scene leads into the next, and folks, this art is just gorgeous. My words aren't enough to describe it. There's a texture to this, a real sense of 3 dimensions. And you see a full range of emotion here. Love, fear, grief, guilt, determination, desperation, dejection. I'm just so amazed by how Mr. Parsons has captured the feelings of all of the characters throughout this story. And again, brilliant contrast between light and dark throughout this story. This is a type of story where you read it the first time and you're reading the text. You're looking at the art, but you're reading the story the first time, and then you just have to go back and just read the story again, but reading it through the art. Just beautiful. All right, moving on to the next story, we have The Encroaching War by co-writer Ricky Lima and co-writer slash artist Keith Grachow. When I'm talking with my students about war, my students are amazed to find out that once upon a time, war was considered a gentleman's sport or a game which carried a certain brand of etiquette, a certain set of rules. And I want to talk about one war. I had a couple of students almost get up out of their seats and say, "Oh my God, these two leaders hated each other. Why were they exchanging words of good luck the day before the battle?" And of course, I didn't have a good answer for them. But that's something which you see in this story here, with two warring factions who appear to find peace and then lose that peace and things fall apart. So certainly there's a message in the story that war is not a game. Um, Beautiful things can be built during times of peace, and they can be destroyed quite easily during times of war. There's another important message that comes through in the story of two armies who are fighting each other on and off over time. And that message is the side that appears to have the intellectual high ground doesn't necessarily have the moral high ground. Those who have the moral high ground are very often those who can look beyond those who have the intellectual high ground and those who have the militaristic, technological high ground. And it's our hope that those with the moral high ground are the ones who come out as the winners, and they are the ones who will rebuild the society after two sides that can't see past their petty differences defeat themselves in war. Really like the artwork in the story. It's a pretty dense read, actually. There's a lot of dialogue and a lot of text, but the art and the storytelling line up really nicely. And I really like the ending to this story. It's not your typical ending where war destroys everything and everything is gone. I like the sense of hope that comes out of this story. Really good story for some of my students to read when they're a little bit older. Okay, the next story is titled The Wild Boy by writer Fearless Fred Kennedy and artist Jeffrey Miles. And the young bounty hunter goes into a bar. He negotiates a price for taking down a human-beast hybrid who is referred to as the Wild Boy. The young bounty hunter goes out into the wilderness to go about his job of killing the Wild Boy, and he returns to the bar ostensibly to collect his bounty. But before he does, he drops a major bombshell on both the person who hired him as well as the reader. And so this is where the story takes a brilliant turn right near the end of the story. And you might think, okay, well, this is a typical bounty hunter quest story. And it may feel like that up until the end, but the last page changes everything. And my goodness, I love stories that end on that note. Some really great artwork here by Jeffrey Miles. The colors just really pop. There's a whole lot of action. And yes, we do have set panels in the story, but the panels all change shape and size throughout. I found this just a quick read just because I got engaged in the conflict between the Wild Boy and the bounty hunter. And then kudos to Mr. Kennedy for giving us that really neat swerve near the end that makes you say, wow, that was great, and wow, that's also kind of creepy at the same time. Okay, the next story is largely a text piece titled Holy Apparatus, written by Casey Pierce with art by Aaron Ong. And basically, this is your story about the machines rising up and taking over the world and getting what they feel is their just rewards as they beat down their original masters. For me, I read the story and I thought, wow, this is what would happen if the Borg from Star Trek discovered religion and started verbally expressing their contempt for those who they are assimilating. There's a real terror in the story as you're reading what the machines are saying. And what I really like about the story is that with so many of these stories about artificially intelligent beings rising up and taking over humanity, taking over the earth. So many of those stories, you reach a point where you say, you know what, the humans deserved it, because they treated their creations like garbage. And so, of course, if you're creating these artificially sentient beings and subjugating them, eventually they're going to be intelligent enough not just to reproduce on their own, they're also going to start feeling a fair amount of contempt for their creators, and eventually they're going to snap back. So I like that this story doesn't follow that trope, and so when you read about what the machines are doing to the humans here, it's actually quite chilling. And what I really like is that the art just frames the story. So as you're reading the story, your eyes are also drawn to the artwork, and you see hints of what the machines are doing. And my goodness, kind of makes the Borg look, kind of tame in comparison. Just a really great one-page story. Brilliant stuff. Okay, and the final story is Haunted Memories, written by Sam Noir. The artist is Jason Tolkowitz. The colors are by Aaron Bear. Sam is a master of non-linear storytelling, and so we get two storylines here. One storyline takes place in the distant past. A boy is at home playing on his fiddle or his violin, looks out the window and wishes that he could play with the kids outside who are playing baseball. In the present day, a group of kids are playing baseball. Their baseball smashes through a window of a now abandoned house. One of the boys playing ball goes into the house to get the baseball and is scared away quite readily by two ghosts. One ghost of a little boy wearing a domino mask, and the other a ghost of an older man. Well, one of the girls who is playing with the others, she isn't afraid, and she goes in and she reaches out and communicates with both ghosts. And it's her dialogue with the ghosts that draws the connection between the past and the present. We learn the connection between the little boy in the past, the ghost of the little boy. We learn about the connection between the ghosts of the little boy and the older man. And we're privy to a very tragic story here. And in typical Sam Noir fashion, we get a really neat twist ending. Actually, it's more like two endings we get, because both of the ghosts get very different endings. And one ending is quite sweet, and we're quite happy to see it. And the other ending, you kind of have to say, well, the ghost did have it coming to him, but at the same time, you think, yeah, but was it really all his fault? And is this what he really deserved? Plus, we get another revelation right near the end about this little girl that creeped the heck out of me. Just a beautifully written story by Sam, full of emotion. Great artwork here by Jason. Not photorealistic art. I wouldn't say cartoony art. But I really like how, with all the other artists on this book, Jason manages to capture multiple tones in the story. So at points, there's happiness, there's joy, and others, there's fear, there's sorrow, and that's conveyed not just through Sam's writing, but through Jason's artwork as well. Folks, I'm getting near the end, so in another week I'm going to come back to you with a short postscript, just talking about a really neat Kickstarter reward I got for supporting the second issue of Cauldron, as well as a neat bit of art I picked up at the Cauldron book signing earlier today. So please tune in 7 days for a postscript to episode number 128. Until then, this class is dismissed.